Hello and welcome to our program. Today we are very pleased to be joined by Mr. Erik Solheim, co-chair of Eurasia Center, former United Nations Under-Secretary General and Executive Director of UNEP. Mr. Solheim is a leading voice on sustainable development and global environmental cooperation, and has visited China many times over the past 4 decades. Mr. Solheim, thank you very much for joining us today. You have followed China closely, visited the country many times over the past 4 decades. How do you assess China's role in advancing global sustainable development today?
Look, there is a complete transformation of China. First time I came to Shanghai was in 1984. There were no skyscrapers, no cars, no metro. People were wearing the most boring of clothes. Then came first the enormous economic growth for China. And now, for the last 10 years, the focus has been on high-quality growth, how to create a green civilization. And China has been immensely successful also in that. China has now 60% of everything green, solar, wind, hydropower, electric cars, whatever you mentioned. China is 60% or more. And China is the indispensable nation for the green transformation of the world.
China has made remarkable progress in scaling renewable energy and green infrastructure. In what ways can this experience help accelerate climate action across developing economies?
Look, a new development path is now possible. In the past, if a nation wanted to grow, it had to be based on fossil fuels. Industrial revolution happened first in the United Kingdom. They had abundance of coal. Then it spread to Europe, to the United States, to Japan, to China, everywhere. Everywhere people did grow the economy, but based on coal and oil and gas. Now, for the first time in human history, we can base our economies on solar and wind, and that's the cheapest option. In Africa, in India, in all parts of the developing world, solar is cheaper than coal. If you switch from coal to solar, you save money. It's not a cost. So for the first time in human history, developing nations can develop very, very fast based on renewables. China is doing it, but the other big nation of the global south, India, is doing exactly the same. I was just with some people in India running some small windmills. In the past, they paid 40,000 Indian rupees every month for diesel. Now they pay 15,000 for solar panels on the roof. Well, everyone wants to do that. You don't need to be an environmentalist. I mean, you do it for the money, for the company, for your family. And that's the big change. And this change has been led by China.
We see that international energy is now facing a certain crisis under the shadow of war. For instance, the Strait of Hormuz and the Middle East. Do you think that under the current circumstance, the international community should redefine the value of sustainable energy, for example, by treating it more as a strategic coordination rather than merely as part of environmental protection or energy transition?
Absolutely. I mean, there is nothing at this moment which is moving the world in a green direction as the conflict in the Strait of Hormuz. Why? Because every nation take a look and they say, oh, because we don't want to be dependent on the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah. We don't want to be dependent on the volatile international oil market. We want to defend our farmers against rising fertilizer prices. We want to defend our people against rising bus prices. Yes. And how do you do that? Well, you become energy independent. And how do you become energy independent? You base your energy development on domestic resources. Take India as an example, the largest developing nation. India has no oil. All oil is imported from Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, somewhere else. Every drop of oil India can replace with solar or wind or hydropower makes the nation richer, more energy independent, and also more environmentally friendly. But exactly the same happened in Europe, in Africa, Latin America. We all want to be independent of the Strait of Hormuz. So we are now in the very paradoxical situation that Donald Trump, who speaks against windmills and against solar panels, is the greatest promoter of wind energy and solar energy in the world. And you have seen Chinese companies, the sale of solar, for example, spiked in March because of the crisis.
What role do you see Chinese enterprises playing in promoting sustainable development abroad while also aligning with global climate goals?
China is now have the lead enterprises in all green sectors. The 6 largest wind companies in the world are Chinese. The 7th is European. All the large solar companies in the world are Chinese. BYD is by far now the largest electric car company in the world. CATL and China is 70% of the market for electric batteries. Only Korea is a real competitor. So Chinese companies dominate all the green sectors. What do we want to see? We want to see these companies investing more in other parts of the world, sharing technology, creating jobs, helping other nations prosper. And we want, of course, an exchange of views and technologies so that other nations' companies can grow. I visited CATL, the world's largest battery factory in Ningde in Fujian province. They told me that the reason why CATL now is so successful was the help they got back in the days from BMW, the German car maker. BMW was a very critical customer. They helped learning business practice and technology from BMW. Well, now CATL is much more advanced on batteries than BMW. So now time has come for others to learn from China in exactly the same way as China learned from the United States and Europe back in the days.
Many developing countries are facing a similar challenge: how to keep growing while moving toward a greener economy. In this context, what parts of China's green transition experience do you think could be most useful for countries in the global south?
First of all, leadership matters. China has led the green transformation from the center to showcase the green development and inspire people. African leaders, European leaders can do exactly the same. I mean, you can lead from the center. Then you need a strong state. I mean, that's not so easy for every nation to get as strong state as China, who can set the vision and set the rules for the market. And then you need a market-based competition. Look, China has brought down the price on solar energy with 95%. That has happened because of government regulation, but also because the very, very fierce competition between Tongwei and Longi and Jinko and Trina, all these solar companies. You see the same in the automobile industry. There are numerous Chinese companies now competing to provide the best electric cars to the world. So that combination of a government leadership with market is very essential. And there is one issue Africa also needs to contemplate. Look, Africa and China has more or less the same population, around 1.4 billion people. China is one nation. You can produce something in Guangdong, where it's very, very warm and nice. You can sell it in Heilongjiang, where at the same time it may be the coldest, but it's one nation. It's an enormous distance. Africa is 54 different nations. Some of the markets are very small. There are a lot of tariffs and barriers to sell across. So Africa will do much better if they try to integrate their markets and see if they can move towards one market in the same sense as China is one market.
You have been outspoken about the need for reform in the international governance system, including the United Nations, so that it better reflects today's changing global realities. Against this backdrop, how do you think China-led initiatives can strengthen South and South cooperation and contribute to a more balanced and inclusive global governance framework?
Look, the United Nations was formed in 1945. It was brilliant at the time. It was answering the call of the world at that time. At that time, India was a colony under the United Kingdom. There was not hardly any free nation in entire Africa. It was a completely different world. Problem is that the UN has not evolved with the times and changed with the times, so now it's outdated. I call for 2 main reforms. One is reform the structure. Africa will be 2.5 billion people in 2050, many more than China or India or any other place. Of course, Africa also must be represented there. So we need to change the structure to reflect the 21st, not the 20th century. And second, China played a very key role. We must look to a people-centered UN. China launched a number of initiatives, development initiatives, governance initiatives, all these initiatives with the aims of making the global structure helping people. If the UN cannot help the African woman at the water pump trying to feed her children, or for that matter, the automobile worker in Shenzhen or Shanghai, or the fisherman in Norway. If it doesn't help people, it will fail. So we need a much less bureaucratic UN, much people-centered UN. But these are the two main reforms. The structure must change, and it must be people-centered.